Rising from the bottom. The cry we hear from deep in our hearts come from the wounded child within. Healing this inner child's pain is the key to transforming anger, sadness, and fear. Thich Nhat Hanh. Let's get into it. So anyway, the next day, Sabota arrived at the gym. He was more excited, more fired up to train than he's been in a while. Now, he's always fired up. You know, he's a firm believer of you don't have to get ready if you stay ready. And Sabota stayed ready. He trained day in and day out, no days off. You know, he was always putting in work. Anybody who knew him knew his work ethic was ridiculous. But it helps when you got, something, you could see the goal line ahead of you. When you can see something clear that you've been waiting for, it helps a lot with anybody to, really fire you up. So Sabota had an extra fire under him that day when he arrived at the gym. He was like, man, now he's ready to tear up his next opponent so he can get on to the big one. But when he arrived to the gym, he gets there and he looks in the ring and he sees a camera crew in there and he sees, a reporter over there talking to Mr. Ray. And Mr. Ray, looks at Sabota and sees Sabota and flags him over like, hey, come over here, So Sabota walk over and gets into the gym. He barely got a chance to put his bags down or anything. And he's like looking at Mr. Ray like, what's going on here? And Mr. Ray was like, they want to talk to you. And Sabota was still uncomfortable, like, man, I wish you would give me a heads up or something, He was a real private person. Mr. Ray knew that. Everybody knew that. Sabota kept to himself. He wasn't a big talker. He wasn't some get to know me kind of guy. He looked at Mr. Ray like, can we do this another time? Something he said that to him on the side, pulled him to the side, was like, yo, can't we do this another time or something? And Mr. Ray was like, man, this is what you talking about. You want to get the people behind you. This is all part of you getting there. People want to know who you are. This is how you get more fans and things like that. Come on, man, I'm trying to help you. And he, give him on, coach him and tells him all this stuff and convinces him to go ahead and go with, do the interview. So moments later, there he goes. The camera's in front of his face. He got some light shine on him and he just seems real awkward. Like this whole camera and interview stuff is not really his thing. But the reporter's right there, and he starts asking him questions. And camera's rolling, and he's like, I'm here with Sabota Brown, the local boxer who's looking to join the likes of Joe Frazier and Bernard Hopkins by becoming one of the next great fighters out of Philadelphia. He's saying real Joe, just like that, real Joe. And Sabota's like, play along, real lighthearted, correction. And he's like, I am the next great fighter out of Philly. Matter of fact, any city. Yeah, they laugh. The reporter's like, ah. And so the reporter looks, at the camera, like, and look back at Sabota, and he's like, oh, he's really modest too. Ah. And Sabota, he's still playing along with him. He's like, yeah, I try to be. And they all get a chuckle out of it. And Mr. Ray's still looking at Sabota because he knows Sabota. And he's like, gives him a look like, all right, now, come on now. You want people to like you. Sabota didn't really seem to care either way, but you need a reminder sometimes. Like, you trying to be the champ and you want to, really change your life. I think you might want people to like you. So anyway, Sabota was like, all right, they go, they establish that. And so the reporter comes back and he got questions. He's like, so in the ring, they call you the Bully. Exactly how did you get that name? And Sabota's like, something that kind of stuck with me from childhood. And the reporter looked around like, oh, so were you a neighborhood bully or something like that? And Sabota's like, nah, I actually kept to myself. I never bothered nobody. But if they got on my bad side, I didn't hold back. And the reporter was like, whoa, I guess I better stay on your good side. And Sabata was like, yeah, that would be wise. And, they get, they have another little chuckle. And then the reporter got real serious. And Sabata looking at him like, okay, getting ready for the next question. And the reporter's like, well, so now that you mention your childhood, I understand that yours in no way resembled the American dream. And he stared at Sabata, waiting to see how he respond. And Sabata was like, yeah, I guess you could say that. And the reporter comes with another question. He's like, you have a brother 2 years younger than you have a brother 2 years younger than you. Is that correct? And Sabata's like, yeah, that's right. Yeah. And now he's looking around like he look at Mr. Ray like, you told him that? Like again, Sabata's pretty private, so he's wondering now where is he getting this information from? And then the reporter kind of look down at his notes, and he says, and your mother walked out of your life when you were 11 years old, right? Leaving you and your brother with your father. Now, when he says that, Sabata's looking real uncomfortable. Like, whoa. First of all, not only is he wondering how somebody got that information, this is something that he pretty much hadn't really been thinking about, or he tries not to think about at all. So this is some news that he tries not to think about, but meanwhile, he got this reporter that he never met sitting here talking to him about this. So it's getting a little weird now. And so Sabata, he doesn't answer. He just looking at him like, okay, and what about it, pretty much. And the reporter just keeps continuing. Like he's cooking now. He's warming up, and he look at his notes, and he's like, and when you were 13, you and your brother were placed in foster care after your father was killed in some sort of bar fight. And he just looked at Sabata with the microphone in his hand and just like, almost like he's at this point, he's like, yeah, didn't think I knew that, did ya? That kind of look on his face. And he's holding the microphone, looking at Sabata, waiting for a response. And Sabata look at Mr. Ray, and he's really wondering, like, where did he get all this information from? How is he knowing all this? And Mr. Ray shrugs at him like, whoa, like, I didn't tell him. I don't know. Because, they communicating without talking, but you could see that Sabata is getting a little edgy. So Sabata turned back to the reporter, and he's trying his best to stay calm. He's trying his best to stay calm. And the reporter is pretty much ready with another question. Ready, he looking at his notes. He's ready to roll. He's cooking. So he's like, so have you and your brother kept in touch over the years after being separated by the system? And Sabata at this point, he fed up with the questions, man. He's not trying to talk about this. He's not trying to think about it. So he said, whoa. He said, whoa. What does any of this got to do with the fight this weekend? And the reporter's like, well, I figured the folks at home will be interested in hearing your story. And then Sabata's like, all right, well, if you don't mind, I would rather just keep this about boxing. And then the reporter's like, yeah, but first, let's talk a bit about your story. And Sabata's like, man, my story isn't too much different from anybody else's, okay? I had a tough life. I had a lot of experiences, a lot of unexpected things happen. You just got to roll with the punches. And the reporter is still like, yeah, that's very true. But I'm sure that the viewers will appreciate it if you shared some of the details of your personal struggle. And Sabata's like, all right, well, maybe another time, because, and the reporter's like, no, I think there's no better time than present. Why not now? And that's when Sabata was like, look, that's not something I really care to discuss at this time. And the reporter still keep going. He's like, well, why not? And Sabata's like, look, because I don't, all right? And so he kind of barked that out. Everybody in the whole gym turned around like, whoa, they thought it was about to be a fight in the ring or something like that. And Mr. Ray kind of stepped forward. And when Mr. Ray stepped forward, that's when the reporter kind of backed off. He's like, whoa, he knew that was a sign that it's about to get a little ugly in there. His microphone lowered and everything. He put his mic down, And then that's when Mr. Ray was like, oh, Sabota, take it easy. And he turned to the reporter and everything was like, look, no more personal questions, all right? Now, one more, and I'm going to ask you to leave. Now, please, just keep this about boxing. And it was just quiet in the ring for a little bit, real awkward. And the tension was just lingering. And you got all the nosy people standing around watching like, oh, they thought they was about to see Sabota just risk it all and jack the poor guy up in the ring. So Sabota, he calmed down, whatever. He kind of paced around a little bit. And he's looking around, too. He's noticing people watching. And that was a good reminder of him. Not only the people in the gym was watching him. When he saw that, it made him think about people that wasn't in the room that's watching him and looking up to him. He thought about his son. He thought about his wife. And he was like, man, I can't afford to let them down, especially at a time like this. The biggest test, as we all know, normally comes when something really big is about to happen, right? You got this big breakthrough, something you've been waiting for is about to happen, and that's when the tests arise. And that's what was happening with Sabota in that moment. And he was able to pull himself together and was like, cooled out. And then, and at the same time, it helped that the reporter cooperated. And he was just like, all right, sure, no problem. So, tell you what, let's talk about this guy. Let's talk about this guy you're facing tomorrow night. Right here in your hometown. Do you think you'll have any problems with his awkward, unorthodox style of fighting? And then, the interviews went on like that, and Sabota answered the questions, you're talking about the fight, all of the specifics, He talked about that, and the interview went on smoothly. However, later on that night, once Sabota was home, everybody was asleep. He was no longer in the gym. It was just him, laying there. Just him and his thoughts. He had a tough time sleeping. Only thing that was going through his mind, he was thinking about the interview. Thinking about how mad he got at the interviewer, the reporter. And then he realized he wasn't really mad at him. The anger wasn't really directed towards the interviewer. He was mad at himself. Some of the thoughts associated with those questions, it brought up things that he didn't think about in a while, that he didn't want to think about, that he's been avoiding. And after a while, he got tired of trying to force himself to sleep because he was tossing, turning back and forth, looking at the ceiling. And he just got up, got out of bed, and walked downstairs into the basement. He went down into the basement and he pulled out an old box that was tucked underneath the stairs. He opened it up and moved through some of the junk and stuff that was in there. And then he pulled out an old photo album. And he started flipping through the photos. And then he stopped on a picture of two little boys standing side by side. And they both were wearing boxing gloves. He sat down on the basement floor with his back against the wall. And he just stared at the photos. It was a picture of him and his little brother, Omar. And holding that photo, watching that picture of him and his little brother, was the closest he's come to contacting his brother in almost 20 years. Just flashbacks and everything flew through his mind of his childhood, of their relationship, as he sat there watching the picture. He held that photo in his hand. And he dozed off.
To be continued.